Welcome to another edition of our podcast. And we've got a really interesting subject today, which is topical for at least a couple of us because we spent a bit of time the other day in a conference and we really wanted to talk about the value of ongoing learning, or indeed learning, and whether it is constantly ongoing, because I certainly think it is. As you grow in your role in your business, learning must be a big part of it, because if you stay still, that surely is a big problem. But the question is how you go about that learning as well. Do you go to a conference? Do you engage a coach? Do you go and do your own research? How is it that you actually do your learning? Yuri, my fellow conference attendee, what's your take on it?
Well, I've been on both sides in my life, learning and not learning. So after I finished uni, I had quite a interesting attitude and saying, I've done 5 years of studying, that's enough, I'm not learning anymore. And then later in my life, I realized, no, this is not the way to go. And I remember that time, the quote by Henry Ford, which I read first time when I was 17 or 18 years old, but I didn't get it that time. So he said that the person dies when stops learning. And it doesn't matter whether they are still alive, whether they're 20 or 90. So in my educational journey from traditional education, an environment where I grew up, I didn't really know about other ways. And especially since I moved to Australia, so I started to explore a lot more. And then there is another part of the education, which is called shelf education, when you just collect knowledge, but don't apply it. So I think number one thing in any education is trialing, applying, and acting, not just learning.
I think when you just made me remember something that goes back a while, because I've been in business for a long time and finished university a long time ago. But I remember during my course them saying you're going to learn more in the first 6 months out of university than you are in the 3 years you're doing your degree. And it's incredibly true, because you go on this steep learning curve. And I think that constantly changes. I know that if I, look at my business from where it was 10 years ago to where it is now, it's grossly different. And even probably in the past 2 years. And I think given world circumstances as well, that everybody's on a steep learning curve because things have had to change. El, what's your take?
Yeah, I think what you've learned actually, that you learn much more outside of university. I really believe in it. I don't believe in formal education. I think it's my personal opinion, of course, but I think it's a waste of time. And you can learn much, much more if you apply yourself to what you want to learn. And I think you need to expand your knowledge over the specific role or profession or business. Because if you expand your knowledge around it, you will learn much more for your specific business as well. Yeah.
My 5 cents on university education. From one side, I agree with you. It's a waste of time in general. But when I looked back at my uni, what the most important skill from the uni I took out is skill to learn. So this is the most important thing, and everything else, it doesn't count. So it was just complimentary, but this is number one. Yeah.
I think the whole university or no university is quite an interesting topic. I think potentially for some businesses or professions, university education is kind of a requirement. For some roles, it might not be. The fact that you learn on the job and learn the practical side of things is really relevant.
I don't want any doctors that don't have any degrees, by the way.
Practical
experimentation is probably not the way to go for some professions.
I don't want any doctor.
I've got an old rusty spoon and a dive knife. I'm happy to have a look at something for you if it's scratching. So I think from that point of view, that it kind of the on-the-job training is something that is becoming more and more relevant. The one thing I did want to add on to the whole thing is for me, even with managing staff and staff requesting training, the big thing for me is the relevancy of the training. I think I did one course once with someone, and throughout, call it the 8-hour day, the first 2 hours was basics of stuff that, how to turn the thing on, how to do stuff. Then there was 2 hours about useful information, and then the afternoon session was stuff so advanced that I was going to say 95% of the people in the room couldn't even use the information in their day-to-day job. And that's where like from as a CFO with CPA Australia, they start in micro courses, which is like a 2 hour or a 1 day block that you can do in your own time, and you can pick what you want and cherry pick what you want. And I think that's potentially the future of some of the education courses, is to do small bits of training that's relevant to what they want, that's specific to their need for information at that point in time. And as adults, we learn best when we have the right motivation for it. And that's a big thing in business from that point of view. Anthony?
I think there's a lot of things that you need to consider. There's ongoing learning that is not necessarily business learning as well. That's life learning that does make a big difference as well. And you have to find what connects with you and what that means. Because I think if you're not pursuing that, then you're getting stale and you can't get sucked into your, just into your business as well. But it also reminds me of something that someone said to me not so long ago, is that you should always hire someone who's better than you, and I think that's important as well, because you could learn from, you need to learn from those people and allow them to learn and grow in your job. And, as I said, I'm an advocate for having a coach as well, because that helps your ongoing learning on top of things and motivates you to do more. Yuri?
Well, I can name that person who told you that hire people smarter than you. I wanted to add on the types of education, because I've done different styles of them, and what I found for myself. In the beginning, self-education, just quietly learning, was seemed to be okay, but then I realized later I tried some kind of group education, not just self-education, with intake from outside, from other people, from other students, or from other learners. And this is where the gold is. It's not necessarily just the coach, it's just an opinion, and very often the ability to discuss your ideas. Because when you're doing just a self-education, you may get stuck in your thinking, in your paradigm, and there is a big chance that you're really missing out on something simple but very, very interesting. Eyal?
Yeah, I'm really into self-learning and education, and I think you're right. You need to expand your view and learn. If you're learning some specific topic, learn from few people. So don't get just one opinion on the subject. Learn from few and pick up what you think about it. As well, I think for what Anthony said, you need to realize when you can't do it yourself, and get a coach. As a business owner, you can get a coach that will help you in things, to focus on things, and a coach will help you with motivation, as well as educate you and teach you things that you don't know.
Well, just came into my mind, very interesting question when you're in business, especially when you're a solo hero, whether to learn or to hire. Because you don't, I remember one of Russian comedians said really nice phrase: it is good to know everything, but God, no, not to do everything yourself. So sometimes you need to give it to someone else and let them do, because especially in business, you have to wear lots of hats and you don't really need to wear them all.
Yeah, and it's something that you need to do, to delegate. It's something that you need to learn how to do it.
How to delegate, yes, not how to do it.
No, how to delegate, how to do delegation.
Yeah, that's a difficult skill to learn, right? It is. And I think that's the point, is that we are learning all the time in what we do, and learning even in those little skills of how to push tasks off to other people is an important skill to learn, and it's not an easy one. Because particularly as business owners, you want to have your hand in everything. And, to let go is sometimes a very difficult thing. But if you keep holding on to everything, then you're not going to learn, and you're not going to accept that. And I think that's one of the other things too, is to not blindly put faith in people, but to trust people, to build that trust in who you're going to follow for what the right pieces of learning are for whatever it is that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And finding those great people around you that can also that are taking the best of in certain areas and giving them to you is an important thing. And I think surrounding yourself with good people is part of that learning process. So it's an interesting topic, and one I think we could probably wrap it on about for many, many hours still.
Yeah.
But any final words from anyone before we wrap up, Pierre? Any final thoughts?
I think it's an interesting topic, like we said, and the continuing growth of the education, both in your personal capacity as well as business, is something that definitely should be important for everyone. It gives you learning something new, gives you a different way to look at some things. And sometimes you learn something now and you look at something that you would have done 6 months ago and you go, oh, if I'd known this then, it would have probably been a bit different. So I think that's something that's very important for everyone.
Yeah, and I just add that a learning process is not necessarily that you sit and learn. Just be aware. See what's happening around you from your employee, if you have one, your staff, and just open your eyes.
Yeah, and I think it's important to consume information and formulate an opinion, and that in of itself is learning. And I think any business that's not doing any kind of learning is a business that's going to fall apart very, very quickly, I would suggest. So thank you, everyone.
And don't forget to apply.
Absolutely. There's no point learning and doing nothing with it. So thanks, everyone. A really interesting topic of conversation, and thanks for sharing it with us. We look forward to joining you next time and don't forget, if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to drop us a line, send us a message, and we look forward to discussing it next time.